Hey, I'm Mac, and welcome back to my series on Ariix, the company that sounds like RX, but it's spelled Ariix. Okay? Alright. Settle down, okay? The only prescription I need is more cowbell. So this is going to be part 2 in the series, and today we're going to be covering a little bit of the history of the founders, because the founders, all 4 of them, previously worked at a different wellness MLM called Usana, which is based out of Salt Lake City, where I live. And I figure, since we've got 4 very high level executives who founded Ariix, and they were also very high level executives at Usana, I would say that it is fair to assume that the behavior of Usana is similar to the type of behavior we can expect out of Ariix. I think that's fair because they probably are making the decisions. And then we're gonna go through a little bit of a discovery that I made where you just might get to hear them say the quiet parts out loud about MLM and how this whole ground floor thing actually works. And then what I'm gonna be saving for part 3 is going to be all about Deanna Latson, because she appears to be kind of the linchpin in all of these scientific claims that they make at Ariix. And she's got an interesting past. So, let's get to it. So Ariix was founded in 2011 when 4 of the executives at Usana quit to form their own company. Because I guess there was a difference of opinion about some things at Usana, and so 4 of them left to go their own way. So those 4 individuals are Fred Cooper, who was the Chief Operations Officer at Usana, as well as the president of Usana, and who is now the CEO at Ariix. Mark Wilson, who was the Executive Vice President of Sales at Usana and is now the President of Ariix. And Jeff Yates, who was the CFO at Usana and is now the CFO at Ariix. And rounding out the founding 4, we have Riley Timmer, who was the Vice President of Finance at Usana and is now the Chief Operating Officer at Ariix. So those are the 4 guys that we have. And those are some pretty high level positions. We got a president, we got Chief Operating Officer, we have a CFO of Usana. So I would say that the operations of Usana during their tenure there are very reflective of their overall business ethics and business practices, because you're pretty much running the company, or you at least have a very strong say in how the company is run. So let's talk a little bit about Usana during their time there. Well, Jeff Yates took the CFO role at Usana after the previous CFO was terminated because he said that he was a CPA, but it turns out that his CPA license expired in 1986 and had not been renewed since. So we've got, some real honest character here, This is a real honest company so far. And one thing I noticed about Ariix is they really love promoting their wellness advisory board and their health advisory board, with their doctors or whatever on it. Although Ariix's is a little bit dodgy, honestly. But it's not surprising that it's a bit dodgy because, for example, Dr. Ladd McNamara was on the health advisory board at Usana. And, well, Well, he was on that board until 2007 when the Board of Medicine of the state of Ohio demanded that he surrender his medical license. Yeah. Yes. That was just a smidge of a black mark. I don't you hate it when the doctor who is serving on your medical advisory board gets their license essentially revoked voluntarily? Ugh, that's so frustrating. It happens to me every day. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I mean, it happens all the time. Happens all the time. I mean, maybe sometimes it happens, and granted, sometimes, usually, when any sort of thing with a practitioner's license happens, it's usually like probation or like a reprimand. And this was not that. This was a demand for him to surrender his license permanently. But I mean, who hasn't? Who hasn't? Who hasn't? And the rest of this dream team at Usana that they worked alongside included Dr. Timothy Wood, who had or supposedly had a doctorate, a PhD in biology. His PhD is in forestry. I mean, but like trees are alive, so it's basically biology. It's totally the same. I mean, I'm sure it's probably all the same courses. Am I right? Am I right? It's the same thing. Trees are alive, forestry and biology are the same thing. Oh, and by the way, he still works at Usana as a sustainability executive. So he lied on his resume, and he gets to keep working there. Okay. I mean, sure, maybe you have a use for him as a PhD in forestry, but for me, the fact that you lied on your resume would be grounds for like, no, you even if we do have a position that your degree is suitable for, like you don't work here anymore. But I guess honesty is like not super important at Usana is the impression that I'm getting. I mean, and maybe that's just me, like like your medical doctor getting their license revoked, people lying about PhDs that they don't have, people saying that they're a CPA when they haven't been a CPA since 1986. Yeah, who can say? It's just little white lies, right? Right. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And I can't say that I have this kind of dirt on the medical advisory board at Ariix, but that's more because there's not very many actual healthcare practitioners or medical doctors on the medical advisory board of Ariix. It's more rounded out by people with academic degrees and kind of like woo-woo practitioners. Although there is an MD named Dr. Joseph Seng, and he claims to have practiced quantum medicine for the past 23 years. Quantum medicine. I don't think that that's a recognized specialty, and I'm pretty sure if you got an appointment from a quantum doctor, I don't think your insurance would cover that. But if you ever need, I guess, your like bosons or quarks realigned, maybe he'd be able to help you. I mean, he's been doing quantum medicine for 23 years, so. Quantum medicine. Quantum medicine. I can see why Ariix picked him. Is all I'm gonna say. And so this gives us a little bit of backstory with what was going on at the creation of Ariix. So this was recent that it was founded, 2011. And the incredible thing that I found is this old YouTube channel from Ariix that they were using in their pre-launch phase of founding Ariix. So this is before they've launched the company like to the public to start recruiting distributors from the public. This is like a very small group, and they were using this YouTube channel from June of 2011, and the last video they posted to it was October of 2011, that's the year that Ariix was founded, and that's also the year they left Usana. And I guess they forgot that this YouTube channel existed, because I cannot imagine that they meant for people to see this. And don't worry, I've downloaded all of the content from this channel, because if they get wind that this video exists or that anyone knows about this, they're probably going to delete all of it. But I got it. I gotcha, suckers. And so the name of the channel is Ariix US. And it's definitely real. Like it's them on it, and they definitely posted all the stuff to it. Some of it's kind of weird, but it's not surprising from these like boomers who are starting a new company, and it's definitely them. Like it absolutely is. It's just, I guess they forgot that they had this channel, and they didn't like delete it or anything, and then they started using their other channels for the public phase of it, because they've clearly not touched this channel since October of 2011. I just can't believe that I found this. So it's really interesting to see some of these materials, because you'll hear them giving the pitch to the first ground level of this pyramid. And this is before they've launched to the public again. This is before they've started pushing the distributor program to the public. They're just putting in that first ground level of the pyramid. And it's very interesting, because the pitch is very different from the pitch that you would hear later on from both the corporate arm of the company as well as the distributors who are recruiting more distributors. It's a very different version of the pitch, where they sometimes will say a little bit too much out loud, and while they are still a little bit careful to kind of keep up this like facade of appropriate operation, sometimes the things that they say are things that they would definitely never say to the general public. It's awesome. I still cannot believe that this exists, and it's very, very satisfying. So the first piece of content that we're going to take a look at is from Tim Sales. Tim Sales is super well known in the network marketing industry for being very successful at creating huge downlines and just massive organizations of downlines and making a lot of money pretty much. He does a lot of like MLM coaching, and he's kind of like considered to be a guru among the MLM people, MLM operators, I guess. And he joined Ariix in the pre-launch phase. And so some of the content on this channel is from Tim Sales, and he's talking about getting other distributors to join pre-launch, and the reasons that he likes Ariix and whatever. And we're going to look at a couple of clips from a two-part presentation that he uploaded to this channel. Well, I guess they probably had like a social media person upload it. Although with how bad this content is, like it kind of seems like there wasn't any expertise involved, but maybe there was. I don't know. So let's take a look.
Hello everyone, I want to thank you for being here. I want to congratulate you. You've somehow done something right, that you would find this situation right now. It's before the launch. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel as though this is going to be quite large. And so what I'd like to do is just start with a couple of ideas here that I have always looked at. For those of you that don't know me, I've had some very good experiences in the network marketing industry. I've been in it since 1990, been very successful, made millions and millions of dollars. What I'd like to do is walk you through a criteria that I had way before I looked at Ariix. Basically, it's a concept that I think that if you've been in business before, I think you can see these things. Number one, will the company go long term? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break each one of these down, but I want to give you the list first. So number one is, will the company go long term? Number two is, will the product sell outside of the network? If that's a little bit confusing, and if you're new, then I'll certainly explain that to you, so just hang in there. Number three is, will I be rewarded well for my efforts? Number four is, will the training produce a successful representative? So I'm going to go right on through here. Number one is, will the company go long term? If you think about it logically, no one can be successful in a failed company. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how great the compensation plan is. It doesn't matter how good the products are or anything else. If the company is not around, you have hurt your reputation. Number one, I need to evaluate the management first, because companies don't build, people build companies. So when you really get in there and you examine the specifics of a company, you have to look at who is moving that company. It's just sort of like if you have a hat sitting on your desk, you reach and you move the hat and move it to another part on the desk. The hat didn't move, if you will, a person moved it. I want you to keep that in mind, because people, not companies, leave tracks. Those tracks in the sand, tracks in wherever they've been to, point to or come from success or failure. And I'm not saying that somebody can't change their tracks. Absolutely.
I thought that this phrasing of leaving tracks was interesting. Maybe he just means what you do and what the legacy of that is. But I just thought it was really weird, because usually when you're talking about like leaving tracks or covering your tracks, you're talking about doing something that is illicit or not acceptable behavior or unethical or something. I thought that was very interesting.
Absolutely, they can. I've done it many, many times. I'm just saying that when you're evaluating a company, the risks are certainly high, and you want to make sure that you're finding that company that's got a management team. Fred, Mark, Brent, Riley, just the whole team here is, and I know it's going to sound like a cliche because everybody says this, we are really the only ones that really have it, in my opinion. And what that means is that, to me, the biggest fear that I would have is the management of resources. And so a lot of times the way you'll hear this is that we've got a lot of funding. And I'm not so interested in funding, because all you have to do is look at anybody who's ever won the lottery, and they got a lot of funding. But what do they have of that lottery money later, 5 years later, anything like that? It's gone. And so it is the management of those resources that I am greatly interested in how they do. I have witnessed it. Jeff is on board with us as well as a manager, as an owner, principal. He knows how to make sure that we have resources. But I'll tell you the real trick here, and it's a difficult one, and that is it is the management of inventory. I want you to just think about it. If a company orders $1 million worth of inventory and they only sell half of it, then they only have half of the profits. So it's hard to pay the bills when you're only getting half of the profits. So it's very important that a company somehow can guess how much the leaders are going to sell. How much are they going to move and drive? And so this is not something that you want to step in on a management team's first rodeo. You don't want them guessing You want these people who have experience, that they know this game, and they sharpen their pencil and they know what's going on. This is not a small issue, okay? The second thing that I'm very interested in,
I feel like this kind of shows you that these are not like super business people, like in terms of like traditional business, like not MLM business, because all of that was really strangely worded and also really obvious. Like, yeah, everybody knows that. Like, that's not even business 101. That's like yeah, obviously. Like, obviously you don't want to have unsold inventory. Like, yeah, that's not new. That's not innovative.
is the management of leaders. I can't tell you how many horror stories that I've been around, watched, heard. Some of it just it's literally one of those things to where I grab my chest and say, oh. What that is that a company, it gets going and they have zero sales. They don't have anything sold out there, and they have an idea, and then they bring in a couple of leaders. Some of those leaders catch the vision, and then they start moving mountains the way leaders can do. Suddenly, the company gets amnesia because they get $10 million, $20 million in their pocket. They get amnesia, and they get acting as though that they did it. Now, they had something to do with it, but most of them don't remember that day they had zero sales. And so it's the leadership who do that. So a little bit later on, when the greed starts going around in the top of the company, and I'm talking about on the corporate side, they completely forget who built them. And so if they want to increase shareholder value, and that's either a publicly traded company or a private traded company, they make tweaks in the compensation plan, and sometimes those tweaks can cost a leader half of his monthly income or more. So when I first sat down and I was talking with Mark, and I told him that I was just so hesitant because it's as though that it's a different field these days. And he said, I want to show you something. And he pulled out his iPad and he began to go through something called Bill of Rights.
Right. So a little bit of context. Usana is a publicly traded company. Did you hear what he said about publicly traded or privately held? So I believe one of the rifts that caused these executives to depart probably has to do with the allocation toward shareholder profits versus profits that the distributors make, because those are different. Because this is with Usana, you're talking about a publicly traded MLM. So you kind of have the shareholders in opposition to the distributors, because the distributors, whatever money the distributors are getting rewarded is money that the shareholders are not getting, right? So, and they're supposed to be maximizing profit. And with a traditional business, your employees would have a wage that you already agreed on. You can't just say like, oh, well, you're not getting this anymore. Like, no, that's the wage. And also, like, no one's going to work for you if you're not paying them. But with with an MLM, well, they're not like entitled to anything. So I could see there being a lot of tension there. And I think that these executives thought that it was going the wrong way at Usana. And we're also hearing here, Tim Sales is kind of giving the bullshit to the founding ground level of the pyramid. Like, oh yeah, we're all about you guys, in Usana, the executives got all the stuff and the distributors got fucked over. But like, it's not going to be like that here. That's why I joined, blah, 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 blah. So it's not particularly damning necessarily, but I thought that was so interesting to hear this like weird, like internal dynamic with the MLMs.
I urge you to get a hold of this if you can, because Mark sat there and he told me the same thing that I'm telling you about, that this happens all over this industry. And I heard something the other day that a little bit shocked me, and it was that they sat down with the attorneys and they were going through the policies and procedures. And in the policies and procedures, if you've ever read those things, they are very one-sided. And it looks much more like there's a dictator and you are signing off that you submit to everything. Mark and Fred did differently as they stepped up and they said, you know what, these things are very one-sided. We're creating partnerships with our representatives, and we want partnerships. And so they told the attorney that they wanted to rewrite what has become a pretty much standard boilerplate template in the network marketing industry.
Because Ariix is different. Just like every other MLM is different. They're not like those other ones. They're different. It's new, okay? They're disrupting it. Also, from looking at the first page of this Bill of Rights, it's interesting that it's called a Bill of Rights because I don't see any rights on here. So far, all I see is like a bunch of like nonsense that doesn't mean anything. Like none of this all says like, oh, you should expectation of trust. Nothing matters if we don't have trust and, expectations. We express our gratitude, blah, 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 blah. None of that, none of those are actually like rights. Like you can't, how do you apply those?
For these reasons and others, I believe the company is going to go long term. In other words, the management part of it checks off for me. If you knew how many companies that I've sat in the boardrooms of, if you knew how many leaders that I have talked to, then this is not my first time of evaluating a company. I've seen quite a few of them. Let me jump over to the
I don't know a lot about evaluating a company, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that would not be adequate information to determine if a company is going to survive long term in anywhere other than MLMs. For one thing, we didn't even pull out like a P&L or a business plan, so like all of that was very qualitative. I didn't hear anything quantitative, but whatever. Maybe it's just me and my lack of knowledge.
next one, which is products. And by the way, this order, these 4 points, they have to go in this order, and you'll understand why on the logic of it. The second thing is products, and the products have to sell outside the network. And what do I mean by that? If a product, whether it is, it's just not a product that customers want out there, or if it's poorly priced, if it's poorly packaged, there are just so many things that can cause a product not to be valuable outside in the consumer market. You've really limited a company to being a small company if the products can't sell outside the network, and you're going to...
But not eliminated the company from being able to exist. You've just limited how long. That's all. See, he's going to give a lot of like kind of waffling and like couching language, but again, I don't think that they would say some of these statements to the general public. And also, the fact that this section has to exist in your presentation says a lot about MLM.
Probably within about a 3-year period of time, start hearing the conversation of saturation. Everybody's telling the same story. You've all heard it. We're going from small to big and blah, 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 blah. What I've always witnessed is that the companies that sell products that stay inside of the network, meaning that only...
So you're admitting they exist.
Only the distributors or representatives or associates are the ones that are really consuming the products, that there's not an outside consumption base, then you've got saturation, not just an objection of it, but actuality, because you're going to stall your growth right there. So I always look for products that are going to go outside the network, that there's a real, true consumer market for it. One of the things that helps with this is the categories that we're going into. They are large, all right? And so when you think of categories, what I think of, so that you and I are thinking of the...
He's just going to list off some categories that he thinks are good ideas for products. It's not very interesting, so we're going to skip over it to the next part because he makes some really good statements in the next part. It's so nice. It's so nice to hear someone in an high in an MLM like admit to the things that we always say and that they usually deny. But he's at least admitted that companies that have products that don't sell outside the company exist, which is a pyramid scheme if it's recruitment based. Like, that is even like the most restrictive definition of a pyramid scheme. That's a pyramid scheme.
The next section is the compensation plan, but I just wanted to tell you that I have seen a lot of them, and everybody says they've got the best, but exactly what is the best and why? Fred, Mark, Riley, and Brent basically created the compensation plan. For those of you that do not know Fred is very good at this part of the business. He's a consultant to many of the network marketing companies out there who need their compensation plan created or tweaked. If there's anybody who knows how to make a compensation plan do a particular thing, it's him. And so now when I've typically looked at compensation plans, you'll hear people saying, well, we wanted to make sure that people weren't gaming the compensation plan. So the corporation would be saying to me, we need to prevent people from gaming the compensation plan, which means basically signing up fake people and things like that.
So it happens. So it happens. So it happens. And that is the most common thing that he hears. Let's digest what he said. The most common thing he hears about compensation plans is that people are signing up fake people as distributors. So it happens. He admitted that it happens, that it really happens. It's not something that we're making up. It really happens, and it's often enough that he says it is the most common thing that they complain about. Okay.
I'll tell you what I've seen a lot of, and that is that it's the company that is gaming the distributors. In other words, they create so many loopholes, they create so many tripwires, and so many but you can't have that because you didn't have this. And
see, I thought that these compensation plans were really simple and that they were just designed to maximize, your reward and get your infinity money. But now you're telling me that it is so common for them to have tripwires and loopholes? So are you suggesting to me that usually these companies are trying to screw you? Wow. See, I went into this presentation thinking that there were no MLM companies that did not have outside sales. I thought they all had tons of outside retail sales. And I thought that all those compensation plans were just so fair and just rewarding. But now you're telling me that there are companies that exist and survive that don't have any outside sales and that have loopholes and tripwires in their compensation. And that there are fake people signing up fake distributors and buying the stuff themselves. Well, I'm shocked. I'm so shocked. To my core.
And I've always thought as though that it was really the other way around. Immediately, when I saw the compensation plan, I could see right away that that's what they were not doing. What they were interested in was putting a lot of money in the field because they know that as the leaders get the bonus checks, the story gets larger and larger. And so I was very, very impressed. The two specific areas that I asked for.
What's that? Surely he does not mean that the goal is for the number of recruits to get larger and larger. I mean, that must just be what it sounded like he said. Yeah. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, because I'm sure that recruitment is not the goal of these companies.
In the compensation plan, and there's been many leaders that have offered suggestions and recommendations, but there's two that I was looking for. Number one is that I needed to make sure that there was room in there to get customers and that we were rewarded for customers.
Acting like this is novel. Like, can you imagine another business writing their business model and being like, you know what, guys? I think we should have customers. Like, maybe we shouldn't only have our employees buying stuff. Like this is gonna sound crazy, but like, maybe we should have customers. Do you guys think we should have customers? I think we should have customers. I'm wondering if he keeps hearing, like, because he's active on YouTube, so he probably, like, at least encounters anti-MLM pretty often. And, like, so now he's like, well, then let's have retail sales so that they can stop saying that. Maybe that's what he's going for. But I love it. It is so interesting because I've never heard like an MLM executive or someone high up in an MLM be like, yeah, usually there are no customers, but maybe this time we should have them.
Hate it. I absolutely hate it when there is no retail markup, and so there's no purpose or no real drive and intention to get customers. And
so it happens.
A lot of times when you've got really, really good products and you get them in doctors' offices and chiropractors' offices and things like that, those people just barely make a little bit of money off of that, and it just really, really bugs me. So and if you've known me now in the industry, this has been a pet peeve of mine. When I was interviewed by Larry King, I told him straight up that I wanted him to interview me because I wanted to get the truth out there that we're missing that part. Not to say that wholesale consumption is not a great thing. It is. But
oh, all right. Wholesale consumption meaning purchases by the distributors.
It legitimizes the business model for the people who don't understand the business model. And everybody knows that you're supposed to have customers. They cannot view it as if you have 1,000 people in your organization, they're all consuming products, they're all consumers. That's not the way that they view it. And so for the legitimacy, I like to make sure we have retail customers and the volume so that we're interested in doing it. The other thing I wanted was back in.
Did you hear that? Let me play it again.
Not to say that wholesale consumption is not a great thing. It is. But it legitimizes the business model for the people who don't understand the business model. And everybody knows that you're supposed to have customers. They cannot view it as if you have 1,000 people in your organization, they're all consuming products, they're all consumers. That's not the way that they view it. And so for the legitimacy, I like to make sure we have retail customers and the volume so that we're interested in doing it. The other thing I want.
So, not to say that wholesale consumption isn't a great thing, but because there's haters like us, in order to legitimize it, you gotta have the retail customers. I mean, it's so annoying to have customers, but we gotta have them, or else those anti-MLM haters are gonna say it's not legitimate, okay? Because we don't understand the business model, and we can't see the people within the organization as being legitimate consumers. So, I know you guys, it's annoying, but we're going to have customers, Imagine going into a business and being like, maybe we should make sure we have customers. Like yeah, that's what business is. When you don't have outside customers, that's a pyramid scheme. It just is. I just could not believe that. That's why I think they forgot that this YouTube channel existed. I'm so glad that I have these clips.
Wanted was back in retirement money. And specifically, where I came from, I was paid 5% down 6 levels deep. That created very large retirement-style income. I was interested in it from I'd like to have that in this compensation plan. Fred beat me. He said, we're not just going to do that. We're going to pay 5% down 7 levels deep. Now, I have to let you know what that means to me. 5% down 6 levels deep is all I got. But if I got paid on my 7th level, which I don't, then I would make more money just off my 7th level than all 6 levels combined. And
is, I guess, in other MLMs, this ground floor level, these first people to get in on it, usually get paid for the 6 levels below them, but they're going to get 7 levels below them. So remember, like, if you have, Tim Sales at the top, okay, and then you got 5 people under him in his like direct downline, and then you have 25, because they each get 5 people, and then you have 125, and so on and so forth. You got 625, and then on and on and on. And so what he's saying is, with that 7th level, because it is 5 to the 7th power, you would make more on that 7th level than the rest of it. So I agree. If you are some person who is well known for building huge downlines in MLMs, which Tim Sales is, and that's important for Ariix just getting started, by the way, because they need to make sure that that first level is really getting it going so that the cash is flowing in right away. So they don't want just any fuckwit off the street to be in their ground level. No, this is pre-launch. Remember, this opportunity has not been announced to the public yet. This is pre-launch. So this is kind of like exclusive for like the people who know how to build a massive downline that keeps growing. We're finding out how the sausages are made.
So I thought that was just the most substantial thing I'd ever seen in my life. That was the part that I wanted on the compensation plan. The last thing, and this is the last one in the sequence as well, and that is that the training. There's only one test of training, and that is does the training create an effective representative? There's a lot of people who say, I train my people, I train my people, I train my people. In the bomb squad, which is my history, there was only one test of training, and that is could you defuse the bomb and come home? And in the same sort of a responsibility way.
I'm sorry, I highly doubt that in your bomb squad training that was the only test. Are you telling me that you did training for bomb squad and the first time you had any sort of test was they gave you an actual bomb and just checked to see if you blew up or died or not? I'm just saying.
I view it like that. I have to ensure that the people that I bring into the business can be successful with the training. The other thing that I want to make sure of in a company is that the training includes selling the products. In other words, we have to have
that you have to say that is incredible.
Campaigns that work, that allow a person to come in the business and get customers. I have seen people stay in the business far more because they've got some customers underneath them than most anything else that we can do while they're working through learning how to actually bring a person into the business.
So basically it gets them to stay in the company until they actually figure out how to recruit people. He likes them to have retail customers because it makes sure that they stick around until they learn how to do what they actually want them to do, which is recruit. Incredible. Incredible.
And so the training's got to do that. There are system training or campaigns or however we want to label it, and that would be the sequence that we introduce a prospect into the business. But what I've recognized, and maybe you've recognized this as well, is that it's the skills that seem to be missing. In other words, we can tell somebody, write a list of the people that they know, and call them and invite them to come to a meeting or invite them to come onto a three-way call. But what they're missing in that is the skills. And all you have to do is listen to them make those first 4 or 5 calls, and you'll know immediately what's going on. And so the training is a very important part, and obviously because I'm in the company, I'm going to ensure that we've got the training that's required. I am not stating that I'm necessarily good. What I'm stating is that I am willing to test and repeat until I get it right. And so we've got a basic model that we'll be coming out with that I know works in the network marketing industry, and then I'm going to get over into the campaign side, and I'm going to tweak and tweak and tweak until we have a number of campaigns that work for the majority of on the majority of the time.
Maybe you don't use the word tweak like that. It kind of sounds like you're gonna like smoke a bunch of meth or something. I'm gonna tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak. I just thought that was, it's so nice to hear even the slightest admission of all the shit that we fucking know goes on and that they constantly deny. Like, revolutionary idea, guys. Let's have customers. Maybe we should have our employees know how to sell products. Whoa, mind blown. What? All right, so the next little piece of media that we're going to look at is also from the Ariix pre-launch era, and this is going to be a call that is being led by Fred Cooper for the prospective first ground level distributors in the pyramid. We're just going to listen to the first half of this call because he kind of talks in circles, but he makes some interesting points. So let's take a look. Let's take a listen.
I would like to start out by telling everybody on the call I am so appreciative of the opportunity that we have to kind of address you, and that you'd be willing to take a little bit of time out of your day to look at Ariix as a possibility to which you could start your own home-based business and take the opportunity to sell the Ariix products through that home-based business. So when I had the opportunity from Tony to come on, I thought, wow, I would love the chance to get an audience of people who want to change their current financial situation, or at least have an opportunity to do so if they're willing to put the time and effort necessary in it to become more financially secure in their current situation. When I started Ariix, I never actually thought we would be doing our own network marketing company. You know, I had what many people would have said is the most cush job on the planet. It was a job in which everyone tries to aspire to. You feel like if you work really hard, if you do very well, if you outperform all of your other cohorts, you can rise to the top of a company and become an executive of that company. And you know what? I got to say, I did it. I worked hard. I got my good education, as Tony was so nice to introduce to me, did everything that I could, worked day and night, worked all the time, worked hours. There were weeks I would work 120 hours, 120. In 1 year, I missed 47 weekends out of 52 to build it at the cost of my family, my social life, my friends, all the things that I love to do. I didn't have the time to do because I was killing myself to rise up into this company and kind of live the good life. I finally did it, as he told you, 3 years ago approximately. I finally made it to the president of that organization. I didn't have much chance of going any higher because the owner's son took the top spot, but I was...
Okay, it's kind of interesting the way he discusses this, because he sort of talks like he... In a way, he kind of talks like he was like he's in a distributor type of role, both when he's talking about Ariix and when he's talking about Usana, which is what he's talking about right now. He's talking about being president of Usana, because he was president and chief operating officer. he talks I guess because he's trying to be relatable to this first ground level of distributors, and you can tell that these are not just like your regular distributors, because literally the CEO is giving the pitch directly to these people on a call. And so I guess he kind of talks like he was a distributor. He'll talk about like how like he's moving his way up or whatever, and he wanted the opportunity to move up, and that's why he started Ariix. But like you can't be a distributor and become the CEO. Like, one of those is a job, and the other one is a pyramid scheme. Like, one of those is being a distributor, being like an independent contractor at best, and the other one is an actual corporate job. But he's gonna like sit here and trash it because I guess he's trying to be relatable to this first batch of distributors who are going to form that kind of first layer of the pyramid and are going to be the top floor of the pyramid because they've gotten in at the ground floor.
Perfectly content in the second spot. There at the top of the executives of a publicly traded company, I had some close friends of mine. They had all done the same thing. You pay the price, you work hard enough, eventually one day you get to be kind of king of the hill. And it was great. We're all enjoying the good life. And one day it became apparent to me that as much as I think this is my company too, because I had 13 years or so in that company, I had worked my guts out for 13, side by side next to the owner, side by side next to the owner's son. This was mine too. I had a vested emotional interest in that company. And it became obvious that I was just an employee, that in the end, my decisions, my choices did not have to be adhered to or listened to, that my ability to control my destiny was also limited. My ability to control my compensation was controlled by a board of directors and was controlled by the owners. And more importantly, I saw firsthand that an associate colleague of...
I mean, that's not something to do with Usana. I mean, maybe he's just talking about how he doesn't like working for a publicly traded company. But when you're the COO or president of a publicly traded company, yeah, the board of directors gets to decide how much you make because they're the largest like shareholders. That's how a publicly traded company works.
Mine, who I had worked with for 13 years, was going to lose his job at the opinion of an owner. And I thought to myself, hey, you know what, wait a minute. I've been out there preaching direct sales. And
I'm sorry, but if you're the owner, yeah, you get to decide if someone works for you or not. But this is kind of confusing because how can they be an owner if this is a publicly traded, whatever. Is this the largest shareholder?
The benefit of it. I've been preaching how great it is to be your own business owner. I've been teaching all these years for it. In fact, I've had and own several businesses of my own presently. And the one place that I thought I was very, very safe and secure turns out to be not any safer or more secure than any other employee. Because I really believe this. Watch how people treat others. And rest assured, they will treat you like that in time. It's not if.
I thought I was special. I mean, like, obviously other people you can just fire because of, you know, XYZ reason. But, like, I thought that, like, I was special. Like, all these other people who work for me every day, yeah, I mean, I know they can get fired, but me? He's so, like, unself-aware.
It's when. And when I saw the treatment of those other executives and what was going to happen to them, that was the day I realized, you know what? My turn is coming. It's not if, it's when. And I had better do something to change my own financial situation. So we walked away from 7-figure incomes to do a business that we think can be done better, with better rights for the representatives, with more control, power, and authority over their own businesses, and in so doing, build products, services, recognition in an industry that oftentimes has a bad reputation.
Yeah, it does have a bad reputation. And also, there's got to be another reason why he left Usana, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, because he says that it was to protect his financial situation, but how does it protect your financial situation to walk away from seven-figure incomes before you have to? Because, like, if you got fired or whatever, or you got laid off, that would not preclude you from then going and starting Ariix then. Like, why would you walk away from seven figures because you felt like it could be taken away from you? So why would you take it away from yourself when you could just wait until that happens and then do the same thing?
And over the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6, 7 weeks that we have launched, I have found that actually it was more true than we realized. Not only...
Interesting. You realized that the bad reputation was more true than you realized. Huh.
Are individuals coming, but we have many, many stories, Tony himself, of people who have been wrongfully, in my opinion, terminated from their organization or lost their business or become unemployed as a result of the economy or laid off or anything. Direct selling isn't any different than any other typical business. For whatever reason, out of your control, you lose your business. And
I think this is kind of interesting, and it's probably going to tell us a lot about the overall character of the people at Ariix. Because if that's true, then that means, like, this is basically the island of misfit toys of, you know, people who got spit out by other companies.
When they start to look at what options and opportunities that they are getting, what rights have been created for them, they're coming. And are they not only coming on an individual basis, they're coming by the company basis. We currently have several direct...
It's kind of a slimy thing to be proud of, that you're, like, taking talent from your competitors, like, on a company basis. That kind of makes me think that there's some kind of back channel going on here.
Selling companies that have been struggling, doing a nice job, building their businesses, that have shown a demonstrable interest in literally just coming in with their field into Ariix because of the opportunities that we're offering. So before you think it's just words, I want to kind of walk you through some of the substantiation for my assertion that Ariix is indeed a little bit different. First, in Ariix, we started out with some of the most common complaints in direct sales. It's unfortunate, but direct selling industry has a bad rap. Partly undeserved, partly deserved. For example...
Mostly deserved.
For example, I hear this common nomenclature. Well, the only people who make any money are the people at the top. Only the people that get in early. Well, for everybody on this call, congratulations. If that happened to be true, today is your lucky day because you have an opportunity to get in early. How about in the first 6 weeks of operation? That's pretty early. And in our first 6 weeks, I think it was our 5th week, we did over $500,000 in sales. So we're moving up very, very quickly. So good for you. But the reality is that is not true. It is not necessarily a function of how early you get in.
Not necessarily.
Certainly it's got its advantages. People haven't heard of it. There's a lot of momentum and excitement over the newest thing. But as far as direct selling goes, many, many people can make it to the top.
I know that he hedged that a bit. He said that it was not necessarily a function of getting in early, but he said that it certainly had its advantages, and he listed off like a fuckload of advantages. And I mean, he sounded pretty excited about you getting in the first 6 weeks of operation. He sounded extremely excited about that. So after that, he kind of actually starts laying the groundwork for that whole, corporate America is a pyramid scheme, which is interesting given that he went from being a COO to a CEO. I was like, okay, there's not an honest or consistent bone in these people's bodies. All right. All of this, it was so refreshing to hear it said, and it just made me feel a little bit less crazy, and I hope it made you feel a little bit validated and less crazy too. And that's where I'm going to wrap up part 2 of Ariix and the dirt on them. Stay tuned for part 3, where we are going to focus in on Deanna Latson, who is the Chief Product Officer and who is responsible and kind of the ringleader for all of these scientific claims that they are always making. All right? Don't forget to like and subscribe. I've been Mac. Peace out. Bye! Well, I'm going to glare at you a lot probably, so...
Come on, baby, don't you leave me broken hearted. Want you over here, come and get me started. Love me, kiss me, sex me, miss me. Baby, baby, pour some sugar from that. Baby, baby, pour some sugar from that. Baby, baby, pour some sugar from that.